Hey, it's Phil Ratcliffe live from Pittsburgh, and we're doing our weekly live stream. Thanks again for joining us. Today we're going to talk about a really interesting subject that most people would probably like to avoid, and that is how technology is changing the future, how it's going to change employment, labor, even thinking about a lot of the things that we should take the time to invest in, and what are some of the consequences of that. So really when we think about this, what is the underlying thing? And it's something that's been happening since really the Industrial Revolution, when we started making machines that could do things to take some of the work off of our back. And all in all, there were always the Luddites that said that, it's going to take jobs away from people, it's going to make people worse, and almost the entire progress of man as technology has come up, has actually done the opposite of that. We now live at a higher standard of living. It's created better jobs. It makes the cost of our goods less. All in all, we live much better lives because of technology. But now, since probably the early 2000s, that's actually starting to change to where technology is actually taking jobs away from people and not replacing them with other better jobs. And so, I think it was about 2 years ago where they do the actual survey to people that are in the know, the professors and the business technologists, to say, do you think that technology will produce more jobs in the future? And it was 50-50 yes and no. That's a huge paradigm shift. They didn't even think to ask those questions before that happened. So really, what is the consequence of this? This continues to accelerate, and jobs are taken. So let me give you an example. One of the ones we're at a plastic surgery conference, and one of the X prizes that has come through is from Qualcomm, and Qualcomm did a tricorder, the old tricorder from Star Trek, to say, can we make this a reality? And basically what it was, they were going to give away, I think it's $2.5 million to the teams that could create a device that could diagnose 12 different diseases without a healthcare professional, doctor, etc., just the customer using it. And they had multiple winners over this 4-year prize. So, really, this is something that's coming that is probably going to replace a lot of medical professionals and so when your technology can actually diagnose, prescribe the treatment, and do it at a higher efficacy rate. Now, will we still want people involved? Absolutely. But will we need, say, someone that has invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in their education? No, because what we're really going to need are the people that have the empathy, that care for us, so that we care about. We want that personal touch. But if the computer can do the diagnosis and prescribe the treatment, etc., then it takes that off the table. So in that respect, that's just one example of what things are going to change. In the past, it was kind of the middle to lower jobs that were being replaced, like, say, manufacturing type jobs, but we still needed people to work on the machines, to create the machines, etc. In the future, the software and the hardware is actually going to do the job and actually replace. And so when you think about it from an economic terms, that is capital replacing labor. And that's huge. So, what are some of the ramifications of this? Some of the ramifications of this is that you really have to think about what you're going to do in the future, how you're going to reuse your resources. So when we think about, just me and Tony were, talking about this on the way up here, is just how much there are in student loans and how expensive higher education is now. And ever since, our parents were growing up, getting a college degree was like a ticket to the American dream and get into the middle class and living a good life, because having those analytical skills was really important. Now it's not going to be very important, but the cost is higher than ever. Just in 2003, there were only $250 billion worth of student loans out there, and as of this year, it's $1.4 trillion. Just less than 2 years ago, it was at $1 trillion. And so these universities and whatsoever made huge investments in, their infrastructure, buildings, rec centers, and dorms, etc. But when we start thinking about that education that they're providing is not going to provide higher incomes, or further economic inroads into a better life, then why are you going to spend, $30,000 to $300,000 on this education. And so that's a huge problem, and that's going to come down through the ranks of our society in terms of how do we pay for all that debt when these people aren't able to pay it back, or what so. But then beyond that, to just think about what is the future going to look like. I think everybody tends to go to the assumption that the future is going to look like the past. They're all going to have jobs, there's going to be income tax on those jobs and the earnings that we make, and that's going to pay for the things that we do. But what happens if these machines and artificial intelligence software programs replace our jobs and most people don't have incomes anymore? Well, income tax isn't going to pay for anything. So you're seeing a lot of libertarians to all the way to liberal people start talking about guaranteed incomes. Even Bill Gates has talked about a tax on robots that take people's jobs. And we're not talking about 30 or 40 years from now. We're talking 5 to 10. You're going to see massive technological unemployment. And so the reason why I'm putting this out here as a financial planning subject is to really think about how you're going to use your resources. So if you're talking about spending $100,000 a year, for your child's education, depending on what they're going to do, that's probably a bad investment. I would even say even $10,000 or $20,000 per year. I think our country, because I do believe quality of life and stuff is better for people that have education. Our country should be more committed, not from like a political leaning, but from a human standpoint. More like what Bernie Sanders was talking about is free college for people, but you've got to bring the cost way down and make it more Spartan so that, again, it's about the education, not the experience of all the amenities that they've added to the process. So, that's one aspect of it. How are you going to spend your money for your children on college, and what are you really buying? Are you really buying them a better economic future by spending that? All the evidence suggests that no, we're not. And so we have to rethink where we're spending that money. Secondly, when you think about what profession you're going to go into and how much money and time you're going to take out of your life to invest in that, and when we look at traditional things like, say, an attorney or where you could have a pretty good, idea that you would make, almost 6 figures off the bat, and then hundreds of thousands of dollars per year after that to go to a doctoral program and spend all that postgraduate education and money, that's a good return on investment. But right now, except for maybe like case lawyers or a lot of the stuff that they used to bill for in terms of research or AI can do that much better, cheaper, and for about 1/1000th of the cost. And so that's a huge swath of that part of the field that's going to go away. And you see that reflected in the fact that you don't see as many growth in the law programs as well too, but we're having massive growth in the healthcare sector because there's so much money being spent. But obviously, this is not sustainable. And like when you even see this X Prize on this truck border right here, this is one of the things that's going to save us. So if people can diagnose and treat themselves without ever having to go to a medical facility, without having to see a medical professional, how much is that going to cost? Probably something like replacing the legal research, probably 1/1000th of the cost. But how many jobs are going to be displaced because of that? How many huge standards of living that people have built up? So, one of the things I wanted to give you too was a good reading list of some of the things that talk about these. It was for really good people that have been in these fields, do economic research, are in some of the industries that some of these things are happening for. One of these books is called Rise of the Robots, Technology and the Threat of a Jobless Future. Another one that I think is really cool because a lot of people don't think about it even though they're benefiting very much from it, is called The Sharing Economy, The End of Employment and the Rise of Crowd-Based Capitalism. And it really talks about how our quality of life is rising considerably for less resources because we're using our resources more efficiently by sharing them. But also, what does that mean in terms of less jobs and opportunities, et cetera, as well, too. Another one by Jeremy Rifkin is the Zero Marginal Cost Society, which talks about the natural evolution of capitalism in different markets to where it just gets more and more and more efficient to where it almost brings the cost of production down to zero. Well, if the cost of production is almost zero, how do you make a profit from it? So one of his arguments is that built into capitalism, if we continue our efficiency, is its own demise by the efficiency that it creates. And then one that it goes along the same lines, but a little bit, coming back to, there's still going to be things that we're good at that we're still going to have a place. It's called humans are underrated. What high achievers know that brilliant machines will never know. I don't know that they'll never know that, but it's a good bet that that's farther off in the future, something between 40 to 80 years or so, where we get actually machines that pass the Turing test. But these are important things. It sounds like science fiction, but one of the things I always explain to people is exponential growth. And so human beings, we tend to just think linearly. So when we say what's going to happen in the next 10 years, we just look back the last 10 years and say, well, double that, and that's what it'll be. No. And what's going to happen is things double and double and double. We see that with computers, and we very much love the fact that how much smaller and faster and better our technology has gotten. But those are exponential, so they don't go in a straight line up like this. They go like this. It looks very linear for a while, but then it goes woof. And we are getting close to where that doubling is going to increase what these things can do for us, and it should produce a better life. I mean, another book that I didn't put up here, if you're interested, is called Saving Capitalism for the Many, Not the Few, and it talks about, what happens if just a few wealthy people own all the technology that have replaced all the labor, and the rest of us have nothing. And it's a very important societal question. So this is more likely the primary reason why you're seeing the division of wealth and income in this country is because the people that are pulling ahead the farthest are the people that are investing in the resources and the capital that is actually replacing labor. And so they're earning what the people that used to work earned, and they're taking the profits from the machines and what's. So you really have to think about this for the future. So when we're doing financial planning, we're projecting out, how much longer do income taxes go before we switch to something like a wealth tax, or a tax on production, or as Bill Gates has suggested, a tax on the actual machines or robots that replace human jobs. So how does that affect your financial plan? How does that affect your retirement? How does that affect how you're going to invest in your kids and help them be successful in the future? These are all important questions, and it's not science fiction. The writing's pretty much on the wall that these things are going to happen. The only question is how fast. How fast do these things happen? And so we generally have been very unsuccessful at trying to legislate to stop stuff like this, because the cost savings and the benefits are so large. It's very difficult to stop. So, comment, add to the discussion, let us know your thoughts. I'm going to post online these books and the links to Audible. You just let us know if there's anything else that I mentioned, if you'd like some more information on. But again, thanks for tuning in. We like to think about these things ahead of time. It's what planning is all about. And again, have a super finish the week, and thanks so much.